How to deal with a smoker's house. Hey guys, it's Brad from probatehouseguy.com. Thanks for checking out this video. So I'm a real estate investor. I specialize in probate inheritance properties, and I actually have a very unique way of getting probate inheritance deals that's quite different than what most people are used to, the old school way of getting deals. And I actually do deals all over the country. I'm looking for partners to work with all over the country that want to do more probate deals. So if you're interested in working together, please reach out to me. But today, let's get to it. I'm sitting here right now. I stink like cigarette smoke. I don't smoke, never smoked a day in my life, but I went to a smoker's house earlier today. It's a deal we've been working on. I wanted to do a video about dealing with smokers' houses. I have done quite a few of them over the years, and I learned my lesson about dealing with smokers' houses. If you've never done a rehab or dealt with a smoker's house before, I'm here to tell you that you should automatically add thousands of dollars to your rehab budget to deal with cigarette smoke smell. It is very difficult to get rid of. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult. So for instance, the house I was at earlier today was an appointment of a house that we're working a deal on. And that house has been smoked in for decades. And while I was there, the woman smoked 2 cigarettes while I was there at the house in the kitchen with her. And of course, today I reek of cigarette smoke. My wife's like, ew, what? You stink. Like, get out of here. Gross. So I need to go wash my clothes, take a shower, whatever. But I've got videos to make today. So I realized, and I told the lady, I said, well, it's going to cost another $5,000 for me to deal with the cigarette smoke smell in this house. And I explained to her the process. And she was like, I mean, I kind of figured that. No big deal. So let me talk to you about my steps that I take when we deal with a cigarette house. Obviously, the smell is bad, but the other thing you have to deal with is the tar that permeates into the walls. And if you have a house that's been heavily smoked in, you're going to see the yellowy orange tint on everything in the house. That's all the tar that's like built up in the walls and in the paint and the drywall and the trim and on the pictures and on all the surfaces. It builds up over time. And that right there is a very difficult thing to get rid of. So depending on the level of smoke damage in a house, sometimes I bring in a disaster recovery kind of mitigation company that I use to actually do some mitigation work on the house. Sometimes I don't. If it's a minor smoke smell, we obviously remove everything from the house that we can in terms of soft, remove the carpet, remove all the things from the house. And we basically clean the walls, just a quick wipe down, nothing crazy. And then we will prime with 2 coats of oil-based kills. You could also use like a Zinsser primer or whatever, but it's got to be an oil-based primer. Water-based primer will not do the job. It has to be oil-based primer, and you need to use 2 coats of oil-based primer. So you remember, this is costing you more money because the painter is essentially painting the house 3 times. They're priming it twice, and then they're painting the house. Unlike a normal house where we might not even prime at all, depending on the colors. Like if it's somewhat neutral colors, we'll just paint the walls. I like to use Sherwin-Williams Super Paint to paint all of my houses because it does a better job at masking. It has kind of a high solids content in the paint. It does a better job at covering things. You're going to prime the house twice and then paint. So basically you're painting the house 3 times. So your painter's charging you to essentially paint the house 3 different times. 2 coats of oil-based primer on the house, and then you're going to paint it. I would highly recommend that you get a duct cleaning company to come clean the ducts. In my experience, fortunately, I've never had to replace ducts. And the reason being is that most people don't ever clean their ductwork out. And one of the benefits is that the dust buildup in the ductwork actually captures a lot of that smoke smell. And if you have metal ductwork, it's kind of easier to clean out. But basically, when you get somebody to come clean the ducts out, you want to make sure that they do there's a fogging kind of sanitation cleaning that they'll do, just sort of a dry vacuum cleaning. There's also sort of a little bit of a liquid fogging. You want to get sort of the upgraded package on that. clean all the ductwork out, and then you want to make sure you have your HVAC guy go in and clean the air handlers out. You're going to want to clean the coils and clean the inside of the units. Make sure you clean that. Obviously, you're going to change the filter in that process. So you want to make sure that ductwork is super, super clean, right? And then when we prime also, I'll leave this tip in there. If you're not going to be replacing the cabinets, you're going to be reusing the cabinets, you're going to want to prime the insides of the cabinets too. Take the drawers out, prime the drawers and the doors and the insides of the cabinets and all. You don't have to paint the inside of them, but do a coat of primer on the insides of the cabinets, 2 coats on all the walls. Depending on the flooring, sometimes you might have to do it in the flooring. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to do all that. And then you also want to run a what's called an ozone machine in the house. I use my contractor to do that because they have multiple ozone machines and they run them in multiple rooms. Also, depending on the level of the smoke smell, my contractor has this, and I don't know if this is the best way to describe it, but it's basically like it's like a hydrogen peroxide. And don't quote me on this, but it's something similar to that, a similar compound that they're basically fogging the house with this fog, misty sort of hydrogen peroxide kind of solution through the house, and then they're clearing the air back out of the house. They also run that through the HVAC system, so they'll turn the blower on and turn the heat and the air off, but just run the fan and circulate all of that through the HVAC system. And they'll basically fog the house. No one can be in there when they're doing this. They fog the house. That helps capture some of those odors and those smells. And then they suck them all out and they run them through a carbon filtration system. And then they'll run those carbon filters in the house for a little while to clean the air. And then they run their basically their ozone generators in the house. No one can be in the house when the ozone generators are run. Typically, they're going to run those anywhere from 12 to 24 hours in the house. I did have one house a few years ago. Ironically, that house just went up for sale the other day. I got an alert from Zillow on my phone that it was back up for sale. I flipped that house in, it was like 2018. It was kind of a probate deal, but the lady was still alive. Her husband had passed away, and then she wanted to sell it. And basically that house, she had heavily smoked. I mean, that lady smoked like 2 packs a day. She was a chimney. And even after priming and painting, there was still a yellow hue to the walls even after that, because the tar just bled back through. Share another story. A friend of mine, he's since deceased, may he rest in peace, a good friend of mine who's a roommate of mine from college. He was in a house one time. He got this house from a friend's grandparents, actually. A friend of ours, their grandparents had died, and then him and his wife got this house and moved into this house, and he had to prime it. He put 3 coats of oil-based kills on this house and then painted, and the tar still bled back through. Crazy. So that's why you want to clean the walls. Now, let's kind of back up to cleaning the walls. If it's really bad, you're going to want to have a company or someone clean you're going to wash all the walls down to try to clean this tar off. So there are some specific cleaning solutions that do that. We use TSP, trisodium phosphate. You can buy it at Home Depot, hardware store, or whatever. It's like a powder. You mix it in with water. Get some, grout sponges or terry cloths or whatever, rubber gloves, and literally, get a long handled mop, and you're going to scrub down every surface in the house. You're going to clean all that off and wipe it up, and that's going to clean a lot of that tar off the walls and clean a lot of that smell out. Now, sometimes it may be better just to replace all the drywall. Like if you're doing a reno job and you're already going to be tearing out a decent amount of drywall already, it might actually make sense just to go ahead and tear all the drywall out and redo the drywall in the house. I know that sounds expensive, but from a labor standpoint, from doing all the other things, it might end up penciling out to cost about the same amount of money just to tear all the drywall out and just replace all the drywall with fresh new drywall. So those are my tips for dealing with a smoker's house. You're going to make sure you clean it really, really good. Get that tar off. You're going to make sure you prime it with an oil-based primer really, really good. Remember, your painter is painting that house 3 times, 2 coats of primer and a coat of paint. And then you're going to make sure you get those ductwork cleaned, make sure you get the air handlers cleaned. And then you're going to obviously replace the flooring in the house. We've never had a problem with hardwood flooring sort of absorbing it, because once you sand them out and then you seal them with the polyurethane, you're kind of sealing in those odors. So that's never really been a problem. And then like vinyl flooring and stuff like that doesn't really absorb the smell that much. Usually you can clean that. It's not a big deal. Most of the time we're replacing the flooring anyways, so we're not really trying to save any of the flooring, so that doesn't really matter. And then some of the other items in the house, like I mentioned, the cabinets and the drawers, you want to clean them out, prime them, make sure that they're all sealed, and just because that odor just permeates everywhere. It gets into everything. So those are my tips today for dealing with a smoker's house. Make sure you're adding another $5,000 to your rehab budget to deal with all of this. And make sure you're dealing with find yourself a good disaster mitigation company. A lot of these companies are equipped to deal with odors and smells and that sort of thing. Also, quickly on the odor topic, one thing I learned, and this is just a tip I learned from a guy I knew back in college. He worked for a company that they went in and sort of rehabbed apartment buildings. And his tip that they used for pet odors and pet smells on subfloor is they would actually either prime or they would use like a Thompson's water seal on the subfloor. It would have to be oil-based to seal in the smells into the subfloor. Sometimes it can be really bad. I've had houses where we've had to cut especially with cat pee. Ugh, gross. Ugh. You got to cut the bottom 2 feet off the drywall. If the cat sprayed all over the house, cut the drywall out, replace the bottom 2 feet. And sometimes you're cutting out subfloor and replacing sections of subfloor because the cat pee smell gets so bad. So those are my tips for today. Hope it helps someone out. Again, I'm Brad with probatehouseguy.com. Like I said, I'm a real estate investor. I specialize in probate and inheritance deals all over the country. I have a unique way of doing probate and inheritance deals that's a lot different than most people are used to in our industry, most investors that are in our industry. So if you're interested in working together, reach out to me at probatehouseguy.com. You can fill out the contact form. We'd be happy to have a discussion about how working together might work. So thanks for checking out this video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.